Hello everyone. Today I will be going over Clark and Mayer's Chapter 18 summary. So to start off, we're going to go through our learning objectives for this summary and recap. And first, we're going to be summarizing the key principles of Chapter 18. Then we will be reviewing the effect sizes for most of the major instructional methods, and we will be presenting a checklist of guidelines and then also discussing how the guidelines apply or are violated in 3 e-learning examples. We'll be going through the key principles, which are the multimedia principle, the contiguity principle, the coherence principle, the modality principle, the redundancy principle, and the personalization principle. So let's get started. So to summarize the principles, we'll begin with the multimedia principle. And that essentially entails when words and pictures together are best, rather than just words alone. So again, that is words and pictures together, keyword together, are best, rather than just words alone. Next, we'll be looking at the contiguity principle. And this is when learning is enhanced, when words and pictures are presented near each other rather than far apart. The key word here is near. So when words and pictures are presented near each other, that is best for learning. Next, we'll be going through the coherence principle. This is where content in an instruction should be catered to the learning goals, and outside material is seen as distracting. So under the coherence principle, the keyword here is learning goals. You want to make sure that your instruction is catered to those learning goals and that there isn't distracting outside material that could, um, you know, kind of mess up with the lesson a little bit. Next, we're going to go to the modality principle, and this states that narration, such as me right now, who I'm narrating everything in this lesson, is more effective than just on-screen text. So if you agree with this principle, you'd probably agree that me narrating is, much more effective than just looking at the text by itself. And then we'll be looking at the redundancy principle. This states that repeated, keyword repeated, information hinders the learning process. So if you just use the same information over and over, but maybe just spread out throughout the lesson, that's going to be redundant, and that's not good. That's not what we want for optimal learning. And then the personalization principle is simply just you want to personalize your lesson. So you're going to want to make sure that, it's not just robotic, that you're trying to build something between you and the audience. All right. So let's go to the next part of this chapter. It shows here an effect size chart. So I just took a small sample from the chart from the chapter, and it essentially shows that there's different effect sizes, and they place numbers on this. So for example, in the multimedia principle, it's 1.39. Now, 1.39 indicates a very high value in use of that principle, which remember multimedia is words and pictures together. So that's proven to be quite effective in implementing into instruction. And if you look at the bottom here on the slide, it will say the effect size less than 0.5 means the principle is not as valuable to implement as those over 0.5. And then cost of implementation and ease of use is important to consider as well. But as you get lower in the numbers, like to the 0.76 with modality, that's where you have to weigh things, weigh certain things like the cost of implementing a certain principle. But generally, the lower it is, the less valuable it might be to implement, whereas the higher it is, you might want to highly consider implementing that. And that's essentially what effect size is, that is emphasized throughout chapter 18 to summarize. All right, so let's move along here. They talked briefly about applying evidence-based guidelines. So they had an emphasis on empirical research and an emphasis on psychological processes of learning. So really understanding how people think, along with a lot of evidence-based research and facts, is very important. Then understanding your technological limitations and that resources determine your level of media integration. So not every person, place, institution is going to have the technology to implement some of these guidelines, whereas other people might. So you have to keep that in mind. Moving forward, evidence-based e-learning summary. So in principles throughout the book, the main crux can be summed up as follows. In instances where audio is supported, optimal learning will come from brief, informal narration of key graphics. In instances without audio, best learning will come from texts and graphics that are near each other. In all instances, segmenting lessons and simplifying is crucial. So keeping things simple is also very important. And then to go to the summary of our e-learning guidelines. So I compiled some of them just to go over so you can get the idea of what happened in this chapter. But these guidelines are consolidated and summarized from chapters 4 to 10. And it's important to understand that the guidelines differ based off the usage or non-usage of audio and other elements. So looking here, when using text and graphics, this means no audio, you should use relevant graphics to accompany text for novices. That falls under multimedia principle. You should use animations to demonstrate procedures or to illustrate abstract ideas. Use a series of stills to illustrate processes. That's the multimedia principle. Use cueing devices such as colors or arrows to direct attention in complex graphics or animations. Use visuals that are as simple as possible to promote understanding. Use explanatory visuals that show relationships among content topics to build deeper understanding. Use transformational graphics to show changes over time. And use interpretive graphics to explain how a system works or to illustrate abstract ideas. So that's when using text and graphics, no audio. When using audio and graphics, you should use relevant graphics explained by brief audio narration to communicate content, maintain information the learner needs to process as on-screen text, such as directions to tasks, new terminology. Do not allow temporal separation of visuals and audio that describe the visuals. Do not present words as both on-screen text and narration when there are graphics on the screen. That's redundancy. Avoid irrelevant videos, animations, musics, sounds, stories, and lengthy narrations. Keep it short and simple, essentially, and make sure you don't overcrowd everything because that's pretty distracting to people. Script audio in a conversational style using first and second person. So I'm kind of in a conversation with you all. I'm reading through these things, but I'm also implementing my own personalized style as well. Script to virtual coaches to present instructional content such as examples and hints via audio. And then break content down into small topic chunks that can be accessed at the learner's preferred rate using a continue or next button. And that is about it for this section. To finish out this lesson, we're just going to look at 3 brief examples from the chapter that they gave. So first, we're going to look at Excel for small business. So this course was designed to help some small business owners use spreadsheets. The course design assumes that learners are new to spreadsheets and Excel. Some of the learning objectives here included to identify and name cells, construct formulas for common calculations, and to use Excel functions. So off the bat, you can definitely see it's pretty cluttered. A lot of condensed material, kind of old-looking texts and graphics. Yeah, at least the graphics are right next to the words, which that is nice. But yeah, overall you can see it's not exactly thought out too carefully. And then it just asks you here in the chapter like what's wrong, and that's where you can kind of give your own analysis of what you thought was not too hot up here. All right. So it does ask what guidelines are applied here, and it does say it does include a lot of text introducing introduction for procedure for using functions in Excel. It does violate the multimedia and coherence principles. The revised screen in figure 18.2 applies the multimedia principle by incorporating a visual of the relevant toolbar, as well as the coherence principle by presenting only a small amount of text on the screen. And that is what I said before, small amount of text. If you overdo it with the text and everything's very cluttered, it is very distracting for the individual. And then here in figure 18.3, it does say they apply the modality principle by using brief audio rather than text. And then you just scroll down, you can see some of the other stuff that are used here for the revisions. So you do see here things are much more spaced out. You do see an example uh, right here. And then you do see to apply the same rate to all sales staff, you use the absolutes. It does reinforce what you just learned right here. So that is very effective as well in that revision. All right, and then this is going to be a different example, and it's going to talk about a synchronous Excel lesson. Does have a different goal, construct formulas with valid formatting conventions, and perform basic calculations using formulas. So over here we see the concepts, what is a formula, and the procedure over here. So it does show an outline as stated here, and it's all right. Let's see here, project an image. And if you all have any thoughts on anything here, you can always feel free to comment as well about what you might think is wrong or missing in some of these preliminary figures. Looking over here, you see things are, a little bit more organized. You actually do see the start window here, and that looks to be like Windows XP or older. So, very, uh, at least it's organized better. It does have tips right here, um, but it is doing a lot in the design. This is much better to say what is a formula, and it will say formulas include cell references, numbers, and then it'll give you a little example right here. So that's nice. Still, again, showing the tabs down here in the window and all these side stuff, very distracting. All right, it does give an assignment here. Type into the chat the complete formula to calculate February profit. So it does check for your understanding here. And then last example is automotive troubleshooting simulation. So you'll see right here, repair order, 2003 Isuzu Axiom, 14,000 miles. Never actually heard of that car. Pretty cool though. This is very cool. I mean, this right here uses everything we've talked about perfectly. I mean, the graphics, the text right here, just very high quality, um, good visualization. All right, going down. You do see right here more so the customer concern, engine lacks power during acceleration. And then we have your tool choices right here. All right, and